Millions of seniors are on their own, with no family nearby or no family at all. What special needs do these solo seniors have? Attorney Eric Olsen, Executive Director of the HELPS nonprofit law firm, wants seniors to know that they're not alone and help is available for them. Hi, I'm Jeff Hoyt, Editor-in-Chief of SeniorLiving.Org. In this video, Attorney Olsen, who deals with solo seniors daily, explains how these special seniors can overcome both financial and social obstacles to live life to the fullest. We'll also share Eric's law firm can help you at no charge. Because of social distancing, we'll be conducting the interview via Zoom. Hi, it's Jeff Hoyt, Editor-in-Chief of SeniorLiving.Org, and once again I have the pleasure of speaking with Eric Olsen. Eric's an attorney and he's the founder of the HELPS nonprofit law firm. Welcome, Eric. Thanks for taking the time.
Good to see you, Jeff.
Good to see you too. So today I want to talk about a group of people that have different names: solo seniors, elder orphans, solo agers. It's basically seniors who don't have family nearby. Maybe they never had children, maybe they never married, maybe they're estranged from their kids, or the kids live 3,000 miles away on the other coast. But it seems to be a pretty big group. Do you have any idea how many seniors that fit this category?
About 1 out of 5, believe it or not. And there's 40 million seniors classified as lower income in the United States. And 1 out of 5 would be about 8 million seniors, which is a lot. There's a study that was done by a geriatric doctor, I believe in New York a few years ago, that came up with this term orphan senior, which I don't like because I call them solo seniors, and there are a lot of them. The study said that these seniors have maybe special problems they have to deal with. They might be more vulnerable, and there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of seniors whose spouses have passed away. They've outlived their spouse, and maybe they never had kids, or they're estranged from their kids, or the kids live far away, and they're essentially on their own. And it can be difficult for a senior that's on their own, especially if you don't have a lot of money and no one to talk to.
Right. So not have a lot of money is an economic issue. No one to talk to is a social issue. So we got to cover both of those. I know that if you go to the hospital, it's nice to have someone who cares about you to advocate for your needs with the medical staff, or even just drive you home.
If a person does have to go to the hospital and they don't have family support, all hospitals have a social worker, and they're never going to just put someone on the taxi and just where they're going. They'll work out with a senior that needs help to make sure they get home, and they're set up that way. Or if they have to go into some type of rehab facility or something like that. So the hospitals are attuned to that and will help a senior. So if senior doesn't have a child or someone that's supporting, the hospital has a system in place to do that, and that they do that regularly. I know that because my wife was a hospice nurse for 20 years. I have a lot of experience with this, and the hospitals will help people if they end up in a hospital like that.
And obviously it's easier to deal with a lot of these problems if you have money. Do you have dealings with solo seniors who have limited means?
I do, and every single day. I just got off the phone with a solo senior. I remember talking to a guy a couple of weeks ago. His income was like $1,000. He was a cancer survivor. He was on Medicaid. He had very little money. And then yesterday I talked with a widow. Income was only $900 Social Security. She was estranged from her children. After her expenses, she was only left with $200 a month. And I talk to seniors like this, all day long. We do, it helps. So I know there's millions of seniors that survive on less than $800 a month, and we talk with them every day. There's a lot of them.
So in a nutshell, what sort of financial advice do you give these solo seniors?
Okay. And this is important. And I guess advice we give to them applies to senior, whether they're solo or not, but especially for solo seniors. First off, when they call us or contact us, we want to let them know one thing that's really important. First thing we explain is that their income is protected by federal law. In other words, Social Security is protected, can't be garnished or taken from them. Pensions are protected, virtually all pensions are protected, and veterans benefits, disability income. So their income is protected by federal law. It can't be taken from it. And the only risk is perhaps some taxes, maybe in very rare instances, child support that's due and student loans, but there's solutions for those. So if their income is protected, they don't need to pay that debt. Okay. And a law came into effect in 2012 that protects Social Security or federal benefits deposited into a bank account. Twice the amount of their income, federal benefits deposited into a checking account is protected from garnishment automatically by banks, no matter what monies are in there or where they came from. So if you got $1,000 in Social Security, $2,000 in that account would be protected automatically, even if you sold something on eBay or whatever. And the banks, they've been instructed to examine the deposit. They can tell where it came from. And if it takes that federal amount times 2, that amount is protected. If they got a garnishment, they rip it up and throw away. So the seniors' income is protected, their bank account is protected. And Congress, really did this because they wanted seniors to be able to take care of their needs like food and medicine and housing, and also that IRA benefits are protected, other forms of retirement. And seniors have to be careful not to, with their retirement incomes, it's irreplaceable. They need it for their use, for their future. And if they use it instead to pay debt down, like if you had $25,000 debt and you had $25,000 in an IRA and use IRA to pay your debt, well, the debt may be paid, but now your nest egg is gone that you need for the future when you didn't have to do that now, and you don't have a lot of money otherwise. Now, obviously, if a senior is wealthy and has plenty of money and can deal with that, have other assets, then they could deal with the debt. But for seniors that are lower income or poor, no, they got to be really careful, and they don't have to pay the debt.
So if they don't have to pay the debt, won't debt collectors come and bother them?
Yeah, there's a way that can be stopped too. There's a law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act that's been in effect since about 1974. And what it does is it has a whole bunch of rules that govern debt collectors. And I call them commandments. Okay. And one of the commandments is if a debt collector gets what's called a cease and desist letter, which tells the debt collector that person doesn't want to receive any telephone communication or written communication about a debt, then that debt collector can no longer call them or send them demand letters anymore. And a senior can find that on the internet. We've got it on our website. So yeah, they can send a cease and desist letter to a debt collector, and the communication has to stop. Okay, and they can stop their harassment that way. Now, some collectors may not honor that. Some payday loans or high interest outfits. Some of them are based overseas or on Indian reservations where they don't have to follow federal law. They're not subject to the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. But senior doesn't have to talk to them on the phone. They can block their call. They can, so I tell some people if all they got is collectors that are trying to scam or harass them, get a different phone number. So there's a way to prevent the contact.
And then they can't be sued either for this unpaid debt?
Well, they can be sued. 40 years of practice, 42 years of practice now, and 30 or 40,000 bankruptcies and founding helps. Not scientific, but I think statistically, if a senior had like 10 collectors, 10 credit cards, let's say, or different types of loan, maybe 1.5 out of 10 would end up suing them. And it could be more, a lot of times none of them will. But as I explained, if they're sued and they get a judgment against them, a creditor can't garnish their Social Security or their pension or their disability or their VA benefit. And when the money's in their bank account, as I explained earlier, it can't be taken from their bank account. So it doesn't really matter if they are sued. and we've got other videos that I've done with you to explain why they don't have to go to court, and why they almost always never have to worry about a judgment.
Good to know.
Mhm.
So if the downsides of not paying these debts, can be alleviated, what advice do you give them financially in terms of, starting fresh, forgetting about the old debts they're not going to pay? What do they have to do today to secure their future?
We talked about a cease and desist letter. They're judgment proof, which means a judgment proof is a word that means that no one can take their money. And the key, I guess, for solo seniors that find that they don't have support, and I talked to a lot of them, and like these two examples I gave you earlier. The first gentleman, he had been a member of our program for about a year, and when he first contacted us, he had a lot of debt. Okay, his income was a little bit less than $1,000 a month, and he had, I don't know, 20, 30,000 in credit card debt, and he was being hounded by creditors. And so we explained to him, we said, hey, you don't have to pay this. We can stop the creditors from bothering you. Okay. And he had applied for Section 8 housing, and he was paying like $250 for his rent, or $300, not a lot. And because he had this cancer scare, he was on Medicaid. And so his medical needs were taken care of. And the reason he called me a couple of weeks ago was he had a question on transportation. So, and I knew we were going to do this video, and I asked him, and I said, you're not married, you don't have any children, you don't make very much money. Are you happy? And he told me, oh, yeah. And he says, Eric, yeah, I am happy. I'm okay. And we talked about it. And the reason he was happy, okay, even though he had very little money, he was way less than the poverty level, is because his needs were being taken care of. He had enough money for his food, he had enough money for his medicine, his housing, his transportation. He just had a little car, it wasn't very much. And that's the key. If a solo senior can get in a position that they can live within their means, then when the pressure of owing the debt is lifted from them, that's huge. Okay. And they don't have to worry about the debt. That worry about debt and owing money and not having enough money to live or be able to pay a rent and all that kind of thing, that that's a lot of pressure. And if they can be able to live within their means, that will go a long ways to making things a lot easier, and especially for solo seniors.
So basically, once they're able to take care of the old debt by not paying it, having it go away, as long as on an ongoing basis, their income can cover their basic needs, they're going to be a lot happier.
Exactly right. When we talk to solo seniors or seniors in general, that when we talk about this, I guess there's two major things. First, they need to understand three major things. They need to understand their income's protected. Okay. Now, the next issue is housing. Okay. Housing is usually the most expensive thing in a senior's budget. Okay. I talked to someone yesterday. Her income was like $1,900 a month, but her house payment was $1,100 a month. And she was a solo senior. And I said, how can you afford to stay there? It's going to be really difficult to live on $800 a month. And we talked about our other expenses. And so if solo seniors or anyone, if they need to get their housing cost in line. And along with that is their transportation costs. So I'll talk to a senior sometime. In fact, it may have been this lady. He had $1,100 in housing and then $500 car payment. Okay. And the reason was that she had recently retired, lost her job, and her income has gone down. But so she was, $1,600 and left her like $200 or $300 to live on it. Something had to give somewhere. So there's a lot of answers. You got to get the housing under control, and transportation needs to be put under control. And there's ways to do that.
Right. And we've talked about that in some of the other videos. But basically, if you turn someone's financial situation around, a solo senior, it must be rather liberating for them to realize that they can afford to, cover their needs with their income.
Absolutely. If you don't have the creditors calling and bothering you, okay, that takes a lot of pressure off you. If you don't have to worry about paying the credit card debt or that old loan you owed, and and you realize they can't take your Social Security and they can't take your pension, that money's available for you. Boy, that's going to take a huge amount of pressure off you. But, and let's say if you had a house payment that was eating all your money up. I mean, we're all going to leave this life and we're going to leave our home no matter what. And I've left a few homes, and I've left homes that I've loved, and but I've been okay. And I tell seniors that you'll be okay if a senior might need to sell a home they can't afford, and downsize or get into a place they can't afford, or they can afford, or they can some seniors can look into a reverse mortgage. There's a lot of misinformation about reverse mortgages. For a lot of seniors who are really low income that have a lot of equity in our home, reverse mortgage can be an answer to prayer. It can pay off a mortgage that they owe, so they don't have a big house payment anymore, which frees up that money within their budget, and maybe give them a little bit of line of credit. So, a solo senior that's eating macaroni and cheese or just trying to survive, gee, if they don't have a $800,000, $900,000 house payment anymore, and they can use that money from their protected Social Security or pension to support themselves, man, you can imagine how liberating that can be. And they still own the home, they can live in there till the day they die. Or if they, are able to get rid of a car with a huge payment and get less expensive transportation, or maybe they don't really need a car, they can't afford it with the insurance. There's a lot of seniors that are paying $500 or $600 for a car payment and insurance, and all they're doing is going to the doctor and back a few times, or the grocery store, maybe once or twice a week. Well, that's a lot of expense for transportation that you don't need, especially if you can't afford it. Now, if you got money, sure, you can do it. But if you don't, sooner you realize that, hey, if I can cut that expense out and have a little extra money, I'm going to be a lot happier.
Okay, so when you deal with these people and you set them up and help them achieve the financial aspects that their income now will cover their costs, like, how does that change their lives?
One of my sweetest memories was when we first started Helps, 12 years ago. And I talked to this guy, and I think he's on some of our videos. And I remember when I told him, and when he realized that his money was available and he didn't have to use it to pay the old debt. Okay. I remember what he said. He said, "You mean I can buy a present for my grandson?" And I said, "Sure you can." And I mean, the tears welled up in his eyes, and he was just, it was just kind of liberating, and brings a lot of peace to seniors if they don't have to worry about the old debt, and they have a little bit extra money to take care of some things that they otherwise wouldn't have to take care of. The pressure of debt can be huge. And when that pressure is relieved, it's just really liberating. So then, a senior then at that point, I mean, then they can get out of it. They can, help other seniors, volunteer, they can do other things. But if they're saddled with a lot of debt and the pressure of that, and a big house payment they can't afford, or rent they can't afford, or a car they can't afford, that can just really drag you down. And I mean, it just fills you with worry. And if you can get that under control, which you can, okay, you can, then yeah, it'll just change your whole life.
Great. Well, that was emotional. Thank you very much. And it helps the nonprofit law firm that you founded, helps seniors and others who are struggling with debt. We'll put the phone number on the screen so people can reach out if they need help. Thank you, Eric, for taking the time.
Thanks, Jeff.